Hello everybody, it's Big Al with some more content for Lord of the Rings Rise to War. And on this video I am going to be talking about my favorite subject, Siege. Siege is so important. If anybody remembers me from 1.0, they used to call me Steven Seagull or Siege King. I would love to siege things solo. I would do keeps by myself. That was my role. But with 2.0, that has all changed. So, we're going to talk about siege commanders, we're going to talk about siege units, and then roleplay and non-roleplay. So, first and foremost, when it comes to the commanders, if the commander is not in your main couple of formations, armies, it is siege. Level 5, level 20, whatever, your lowest ones, the commanders you don't use are siege commanders. Use them. There's not one useless commander in this game because they can be used for siege. Now, Evil Side has a couple commanders that give siege buffs. First is Ugthak. He's a tier 1, so very easy to get. Once you get him to respect 4, he has the skill Warlord. And when it's maxed out, siege damage of orcs or Uruk-hai units in commander's formation plus 8%. That ends up becoming a lot. Now, if you click on the races, Uruk-hai, it shows which units are acceptable. Which one of the great things is these right here, the Breakers and Alchemists. But we'll get back to that. So, you have Ugthak. Next, you have... Oh, where'd he go? I forgot which account I'm on. I don't have them all unlocked. This is the Season 3 one. Is Grisnika. I just call him Grizz. He's a Tier 2 commander. As soon as you unlock him, you get the Warlord skill that gives siege damage to orcs or Uruk-hai units. And then the third commander is Gothmog. Just look at how ugly that face is. Of course he's for siege. His respect for skill, when it's maxed out, siege damage of the commander's formation plus 12%. So that is any unit. It doesn't have to be Uruk-hai. So this is a great one to have. So if you're playing role play and you're on Evil Side, you want these commanders. Because siege is a very important part of the game. If you play non-role play, you want these 3 commanders. Because extra siege is very helpful. It helps your team. But, like I said, if it's a commander that you don't use for fighting or tiling or mobs, they are a siege commander, so use them. It's just these 3 have an extra buff. Also, when you're using siege, you want to use green or blue siege ladder gear as well on your siege commanders. Do not waste purple items for siege ladder. Use those items to strengthen or refine. But this gives an extra 12% siege damage with the 4-piece set, or it's 5% with the 2-piece set. So use the gear. If you have those extra commanders and you're playing role play on the Evil Side or non-role play, also use those 3 commanders. But regardless, every commander that's not there that you use for fighting or some kind of progression, use them for siege. Plain and simple. So now we're going to talk about units. Now this is another important thing. Okay, horses. If you look at horses, they are all Siege S. Siege S is never okay. That is the worst rating any of them have besides the birds. You do not use Siege C. You can use Siege B ranking for the first, say, 4 or 5 days of a season. But after that, you have to be above either an A or an S tier. So, first I'm going to talk about one of the very good size units. They only have Siege B. Is the Dwarven Footmen. Their march speed is B, which is faster than most small units. Their siege is B. It's the same as a lot of them. But they are so cheap. They are cheap, one of the cheapest units you can make. So, we're starting there. Okay? And this part is only pretty much for roleplay good side. Okay? You do not want to use archers. Some of the archers do have Siege B, but some of them are Siege C. You really want to use those Dwarven Footmen, and I'm going to show you that those Dwarven Footmen were Siege B. Now I'm going to go to Guardian C. They're only Siege B as well. So that's something to think about. The next option for good side siege is Borings. Okay, they have Siege A. These again you get from the Natural Beast Quarter or one of the neutral camps around. And these are acceptable, and like I said, you need to have troops for siege that are Siege A or above by the 5th or 6th day. Then the best unit for good side roleplay and siege are Entings. They are the only good side that will have Siege S. That's not a colossal unit. They are. They also come in the Natural Beast Quarter. They are a little expensive, but they are Siege S, and it makes a huge difference. Good side, pretty much, that's their options. Borings or Entings are pretty much the option for Siege. You can use regular Ents, but they are just so expensive. You only get 2 moves because they're colossal, and they do give better siege damage. But honestly, Entings are the way to go if you are playing good side roleplay server. And you should start pumping these out, like I said, probably by the 6th day to get some of them out at least. So, now we're going to talk about roleplay, evil side, and non-roleplay. Hands down, you should be using breakers. Breakers are Urukai units. They have Siege A. They are tier 1 with Siege A. And there shouldn't be an issue by having these on the 2nd or 3rd day. But everyone needs to have these if you are playing roleplay evil side or non-roleplay. Breakers. I'm going to show you the tier 2s, which would be sappers. They have Siege A as well. So early game, it is stupid to train sappers. They're going to do the same exact siege damage, but they're going to cost you more resources. In early game, resources are important. So you go from breakers, and then when you finally can get the quarters up to high enough to get the tier 3s, the alchemists. The alchemists are the hands down best small unit siege in the game, and they are Siege S. Normal conscription is just like any other T3. So when you're playing non-roleplay or roleplay evil side, you're going to use breakers, and then you're going to go to alchemists. Plain and simple. There was another one that I was looking at, and a lot of people do use these to play with, to actually fight with, are crushers. If you are just making mass amounts of crushers, this would be also acceptable for siege because they are Siege A. Again, the alchemists would be better, but again, I understand some people not wanting to make too many siege units because they want fighting troops in their barracks. Now, if I go down to the T2 version of the Crushers, would be the Brute, and they are Siege B. which if you go to the grunts on T1, same thing, Siege B. So you get the same amount of siege from the tier 1 and the tier 2. So I hope that clears up on what units to use. Now you can use colossal units like Ents or Mumakills. But again, very, very expensive. They will do more damage, siege damage, but they are very expensive. Takes a very long time to make. I do not recommend them. As long as you're using multiple armies for siege, because everyone has at minimum 12 commanders that they do not use. That alone is 3 full armies that you could put breakers or alchemists on, entings on, enting. Okay, you can put those on those 12, and that's 3 right there. And I believe at level 20 or 25 commanders, a full army of alchemists does, I want to say, 1400 per hit, somewhere around there. So if you have full stamina, so 1400 times 10, that's 14,000 siege damage from one army. Say you have 3 full ones. Okay, that is 42,000 siege damage you could do. And every player that plays the game should have at least 2 full armies worth of siege units. Yes, 2 full armies of siege units. So again, use what's cheap for the first 3 or 4 days, but then you need to get some siege units, because moving fast early game is very important, and people need to bring siege to these keeps and passes. That will also help you later in the season when you are taking keeps and passes, having some strong siege so that you can get through these keeps as fast as possible once you start the attack. So, I hope you guys listen to me, take my advice on the siege. I know the siege. Breakers and alchemists should be the top priority for all, whether you're roleplay evil or a non-roleplay server. Breakers and then alchemists. And then good side, I recommend Dwarven Footmen, but anything with Siege B or above is good for the first 3 or 4 days. But after that, it's Borings or Entings. Entings would be the preferable one. So, that's it on Siege. So, as always, make the most out of what you got.